misunderstanding that people have about how child support is determined?
The biggest one I hear is, hey, we've agreed to a 50-50 schedule, so there's not going to be child support, right? Like we hear the kids are equally spending time with both of us, so why should I have to support the other house? That's not how it works in Wisconsin. So these are some of the hardest conversations we have with people. We've got overtime, we've got bonuses, I have a second job, and do I have to pay support on this income? By default, the answer is yes. It's all income available for support, but it's important to know.
High income payers may get a bit of a discount the higher they earn. Does the opposite apply if somebody is earning less income?
I will be very frank that
my name is Holly Mullin. I am the managing partner at Sterling Law Offices, and I have with me today attorney Austin Miller. Austin has been my colleague at Sterling for a number of years. He is a partner at the firm and an excellent source of information. Austin, want to say hi to our viewers?
Hi, everybody. And if you're watching and listening, I am not homeless, even though I appear to be.
He's got a couple days shaved. It's we like it. We like this scruff, Austin.
All right.
So thank you for joining us today. As you know, I come to you often with questions and troubleshooting cases because you always just seem to have a wealth of information. And I want to talk today more detail about child support. I want to go into the understanding of which cases does it apply to? How is it calculated? When does it not necessarily apply? I think when we have clients come in, it's one of their primary questions is like, how is that going to impact me and my case and my kids? So I'd like to kind of just break that down for everyone watching and listening today. So let's start with kind of just high level, like how is child support determined in the state of Wisconsin?
All right. So this is super high level, and anything that we talk about today, it's not legal advice to you folks listening. This is just a general overview, right? Come talk to us if you want more in depth on your own situation. But high level, we're going to need a little bit of information before we can give a firm number. This is what the child support calculation would be. We need to know how many kids there are, how their time's split between the two households, and we need to know what everyone's gross income is. Once we have those three pieces, we can come up with what the standard guideline child support would be.
So in Wisconsin, it is fairly laid out. Is that a fair statement? Like it's laid out for the lawyers. Once you have the information that you just listed, right? Those three factors, you're able to then give a fairly straightforward calculation and answer on child support.
Yeah. And, there's unique circumstances that will come into play. Maybe someone has a business. Maybe someone has a flexible work schedule. Maybe we've got a high income earner. There's different nuances, but in general, yes, those three pieces of information we'll be able to give, plug them into a formula and get an answer as to what child support will be.
So tell me a little bit more about that. You referenced kind of like nuances, like a high income earner. How would that affect things if you do have what you just described as a high income earner? What would that implicate?
Yeah, so there's certain thresholds. So when it all boils down to it, child support obligation, again, is based upon those three main factors. But it's no matter how we calculate it, there's a certain percentage of income that we're looking at. And that percentage decreases once your income hits certain thresholds. So if you make, I believe it's 84 right now, somewhere around there, then you're going to get, it's going to go down from there until you reach 150, and then over 150, it's reduced once more. And I think that
they're essentially giving you a little bit of a break.
Yeah.
You earn more money because it's sort of like just because you earn more money doesn't necessarily mean that the kids need more support. So they're giving you a little bit of a break as the payor based on you earning more money.
Yeah. And I think that's fairly standard that it applies, but it is discretionary. It's not an automatic that the court applies those. They usually do, but they don't always.
Got it. And what would you say? I mean, having talked to so many clients over the years about child support, what's the biggest misunderstanding that people have about how child support is determined?
The biggest one I hear is, and it's not really about how it's determined, but the biggest misconception I hear is, hey, we've agreed to a 50-50 schedule, so there's not going to be child support, right? Like we hear the kids are equally spending time with both of us, so why should I have to support the other household? That's not how it works in Wisconsin. It's not so much about, well, you got the kids half the time. We assume that everyone's fine. No, the intent of child support is to make sure that the kids have a a very basic level of continuity in terms of resources at each household available to them. So if you out on a 50-50, if you earn more than your spouse or your ex-spouse, um, there's going to be some child support obligation.
So basically, what you're saying is, unless if you have equal placement, there still might be child support unless you have equal income with the other parent.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. And that happens sometimes. Those are great situations, but
Yeah,
it's
it's
rare.
very easy to figure out that calculation.
Yeah.
Um, you mentioned before, that high income payers may get a bit of a discount the higher they earn. Does the opposite apply if somebody is earning less income?
I will be very frank that yes, but I don't know how. There is a low income threshold. And if you do not have the income, and I don't, off the top of my head, I don't remember what that threshold is. I think it's federal poverty guideline based. If your income is under that threshold, your income is weighted less. There's a smaller percentage as well.
Got it. Okay, so let's talk more about helping people prepare for what to expect. When you talk percentages, is this could somebody end up paying 50%, 60% of their income in child support? Like when we're talking percentages, can you narrow that down a little bit?
Yeah. So the number of percentages the percentage is going to be tied to the number of kids. We talk about 17% for one kid, 25% for two kids. And it goes up from there, capping out at around, I believe, 32%. That would be, those full percentages would really only be in terms of if the other parent has what we call primary placement. So they have the kid or kids 75% or more of the time. That's when you're looking at the full percentages. Once it's into shared or shared equal, then it gets a little more complicated in terms of the formula. But the percentages generally are less once you're into shared placement.
So meaning when you say shared equal, you're saying if each parent has more than 25% of the time,
Yeah.
I suppose, right? Because you said if you have 75% or more, you're the primary. And then that percentage you just talked about, I think you said 17% for one child, right? So 17% for that one child, that applies just to the other parent paying the parent who has primary placement.
Yep.
And if these parents end up, as you said, shared, where nobody has 75%, maybe they have 50-50, maybe there's 40%, 60% placement, but it's some sort of more closely related placement time, then how is it? You don't have to give the exact calculation, but are both parents' incomes then taken under consideration?
Yeah, there's more to the formula, but very high level. We calculate what parent A owes to parent B and what parent B owes to parent A. There's a little more nuance to it, and they tried that. There's a little bit of a discount built into the formula, and then we offset. Right, if someone owes 500, the other parent owes 200. Well, the first parent then owes 300 to bridge the difference.
Sure. So that you're not having two payments going across. You're
Correct.
just offsetting. That makes perfect sense. Okay. When you're doing this percentage calculation, let's go to that. I think you said for two kids would be the 25%,
Yep.
right? So it keeps going up, the number of kids, but it's not equal, is it? Like you said,
No.
17% for one kid, but it only goes up to 25% for two kids?
Yeah, and people sometimes have heard, I'm going to have to pay 17% of my income for one. What does that mean for two or three? Once you cap out at about five kids, if we just did it straight line, that's almost 100% of your income. But no, we don't do the guidelines don't say 17 and then 34%. It's 17 and 25 because there's some shared costs that's anticipated. So both kids are going to need a house, but do you need to pay the full percentage for that cost is shared between the two kids as opposed to an independent cost for the kids? I think.
Because it's not like you have a separate house for every child. You
Right.
don't have a separate cable bill for every child, a separate utility bill for every child.
As much
So
as I would like that for everybody.
so basically 17 is that big number for the first kid, and then every child added thereafter is a smaller percentage that's added on to that child support calculation.
Yeah.
Okay.
And maybe a better example, one kid might eat half a box of macaroni and cheese. I don't know how much kids eat. Half a box of macaroni and cheese, but you don't need to buy two boxes for two kids, right? You could just do one box.
And we as parents eat the leftovers anyway, don't
Yep.
we? Or is that just me?
Nope. I had some delicious Annie's mac and cheese last night that was not eaten by my child.
I feel you, Austin. I've been there. Okay, so we're using these percentages, whether it be the 17% for one kid, 25 for two, or there, we move up the ladder. Is that based on like what a parent is taking home? Like meaning after taxes are taken out, or is that like the gross number? Like what number is that based off of?
It is the gross number. Yeah, we'd be looking at before taxes, before any type of deductions, including health insurance, retirement. It's the gross pay we're looking at. There's an exception, or there's not an exception to that. That's what we look at. If you own your own business, we may look at deducting certain necessary and required business expenses, but we're still looking at before tax income when we calculate child support.
Very helpful. And talk to me about like sort of special or unique income. What if I have a job in sales and my base salary is relatively low? Let's say I am guaranteed a salary of only 20,000 a year, but last year I made 80,000 in commissions, and so my overall income is pretty high, but what I'm guaranteed month to month is low. What have you seen done in those situations?
Yeah, and I'm going to plug family law attorneys for especially in these types of situations. We're great, but these are hard because, right, if we look at your W-2, a commission-based earner's W-2 for 2024, and it's 150,000, but like you said, their base is only, or their draw, what they're guaranteed a month is only $2,000. That's going to cause a huge disparity. It's not fair to charge 150 per month likely for the paying spouse, and it's not fair to the receiving spouse to only have a small, child support based on $2,000. So we've got to find some middle ground or a way to bridge that gap. Usually we look at either true annual true ups, could be quarterly true ups, it could be monthly true ups based upon income per month. And
What's a true up? Tell me what you mean by true up.
So we say we get a baseline. We're going to have guaranteed support being paid monthly at this amount. And then on however long we're looking at, either a month, quarter, half a year, full year, we're going to review. We're going to see what is the actual income, what should have been paid, and then have the mechanism and timelines for when any deficit or any amount that should have been paid that hadn't yet, when that's owed the other spouse.
So the person who's getting the payments isn't getting shortchanged by assuming a low income, and the person who's paying isn't being like assumed to have this great income when maybe these commissions don't come in this year. It's like true up, I guess you're saying it's like it's true to the actual income and you just reconcile it sometime down the road. Maybe that's, like you said, monthly, quarterly, annually, but it's to ensure fairness to both parties.
Yeah, right.
Is there any types of income that are excluded from child support?
Yeah, there are a few types, not many. The statute's really broad on what is considered income, how it's treated. But if what a parent's receiving child support from another case, that's not included as income. Food stamps, foster care payments, and another big one that we get is SSI, or supplemental security income. That's not treated as income for child support purposes.
But generally, everything else is.
Yep. So
What about
security
what
disability.
about my overtime, Austin? If I 40 hours a week, but I put in the extra couple hours, do I have to pay child support on that extra money?
So these are some of the hardest conversations we have with people, right? We've got overtime, we've got bonuses, I have a second job, and do I have to pay support on this income? By default, the answer is yes. It's all income available for support, but it's important to know who's going to make this decision. Are the two parents deciding together to include or not include certain income? How does the court official that might make the decision generally treat that type of income? So the answer by default is yes, but not always.
Yeah, that's great to know. Well, this has been incredibly enlightening and helpful, and I hope that our listeners and viewers have also found it helpful. Thank you so much for spending time with us today, Austin.
My pleasure, anytime.
And the biggest takeaway is when you have questions about child support, probably best to talk to a family law attorney about it. Make sure you're considering all of these important factors and all of the nuances that go along with it.
There is. I agreed completely.
Excellent.
Figuring out child support, that's just the start. What really shapes a child's future is who gets custody and how visitation is decided. Don't miss our next video on how family law courts make these decisions.